theater lesson is going to encourage one of my most favorite things about theater, which is the storytelling aspect of theater. This is called Story Stew. This teaches the three main ingredients of a story: character, setting, and a problem. The age range is 5 to 10 years old, and the materials needed are pen, paper, and a couple of bowls, but the bowls are optional. You first start by having everyone sit down and discuss what the ingredients of a story are. You talk about character. Well, who are the characters in the story? Have them give some examples. Then brainstorm some of their characters. You want to encourage them to stay away from characters who have already been created. So instead of saying Harry Potter, how about we say a wizarding boy? And so you brainstorm anyone that comes up, any kid that shouts it out. Remember, there's no wrong answer. If someone says a blade of grass, you put that blade of grass up there. Then you move on to setting. You discuss that setting can happen in the classroom. It can happen outside. It can happen in a grocery store. Again, encouraging them to think outside of a box. Speaking of outside of a box, a setting could happen inside a box, right? In a pencil box or in a light bulb or next to a blade of grass. So settings can be as far-reaching as a child wants them to be. Brainstorm them. Write them all down. And then you want to talk about problem. Give some examples of problems in stories. Now, when you start to brainstorm the problems, you want to keep them in short phrases. Being chased by a dragon, being eaten by a dragon, being stuck in a volcano, not being able to get past a blade of grass. So you want to keep going and get a couple of those phrases down. Then you're going to take them and you're going to put them in 3 different piles or 3 different bowls. Then you invite everyone to get up on their feet and find a spot in the room. Their spotlight in the room is what I like to call it. And their spotlight in the room is just their little area where they get to stand in the spotlight and be seen by everyone. No one can come into their spotlight, and they cannot leave their spotlight, or they will not be seen anymore. No actor wants that, or child, right? So you stand in your spotlight. You also want to encourage them or not encourage them. You want to point out what the word freeze means. Now, when I'm working with older kids, I might use the word hold and explain why we use the word hold in the theater. Hold in the theater means that they're doing something on stage and everyone needs to stay still until that's taken care of, or we could get hurt. But freeze works as well. So freeze is you freeze and you stop and you look at me. Now they're standing, they're in their spotlight, they know what freeze means. You can also go over how loud they can be. A lot of teachers use different voice levels. Sometimes there's a voice level 10 and other times there's a voice level 1, right? Or if you're really just focusing on their body and their faces, you can take away voice level all the way and really they have to show the character just with their body. So you've given them their voice level, they're standing in their spotlight, now they know freeze, and now they are ready to perform. So you start with characters and you pull out one of the characters, blade of grass, and everyone becomes that blade of grass. Then wizard, you go back and forth. If it gets out of control at any point, you say freeze, bring everybody back to their spotlight, and you start again. After you get through most of the characters, then you're going to move on to your setting. Same idea, except now they have to act like they're in the setting. They're in a grocery store. They're in a light bulb. Wherever the setting is, that's where they act like they are at. And then you put those aside, and then you move on to the problem. And again, being chased by a dragon, they would just act it out, being stuck in a volcano. Don't ever think that the kids won't be able to do it. If they do say, I can't do that, or I don't understand what that is, look at them and say, there's no wrong answer in theater. Just give it a try and see what happens. And after you've gone through all of those, then you have everyone sit down, get a drink of water, have everyone sit down, stand up, invite 2 people up on stage and give them each one of the characters that have been brainstormed without telling the audience, and also a problem. And you can do this in a couple of ways. You can build on this if you've got the time. So first give them the characters and they have to talk to each other like their characters, and then the audience guesses who they are. And then you can move on to giving them their characters, their setting, and then having them have a discussion and act like they're in their setting and letting the audience see if they can guess where they are and who they are. And the third build up to that is you give them their characters, you give them their setting, and then you give them the problem. And sometimes they have a hard time solving the problem, and this is a good moment to stop and say, okay, to the audience, hey, how would you guys solve this problem? Give them some ideas, and then hit the play button and let them do it again. By the end of this lesson, you have kids who have created their very own characters, acted them out, come up with various settings, heard other settings and characters from other students and got inspired by them, and also gave them the option and the chance to act them all out, to feel them all out. So by the time you sit them down into the next part and you have them start writing out some of their story or their play or whatever, they've got a lot to draw from, which is usually a really good place for them to start. All right, to help us demonstrate, once again, I have my husband, myself, and my sweet little boy. Hi, everyone. So this is our example of Story Stew. All right, our actors have found their spotlights. They are standing in there. They know not to move out of that spotlight or they won't be able to be seen, and they can't move into anybody else's spotlight. We have already brainstormed our characters, our setting, and our problem. So first, we are going to become our characters. So our first character that we are going to become is a monster. And freeze. Next character is a robot. And freeze. Next character is a dinosaur. Stay in your spotlight. Stay in your spotlight. There you go. All right, and freeze. Now we're going to act out our settings. Our first setting is a deep, dark cave. Looking around that deep, dark cave.
I'm the monster right now.
Okay, freeze. And now you're going to act like you're on the moon. And freeze. Now you're in a pencil box. You probably have to get very small. Maybe. Or you could be a pencil.
What?
Here we go. Well, what do you find in a pencil box?
A monster.
Oh, of course you do. All right. Nice. And freeze. Now we're going to act out our problems. Your first problem is there's no sandwiches. So what are you going to do? There's no sandwiches and you want to eat.
And our next problem is the monster.
Our next problem is there is a monster in the cave.
Daddy has to be looking around for me.
Yes, I think he's scared of you. All right. And freeze. And our next problem is there are no lights. You can't see anything.
I'm a black monster.
Okay. All right. And freeze. And that's basically how that game works. You can do some side coaching if someone's not quite sure how to do it, like the pencil box thing. You can do some side coaching with that. I will tell you that this guy's a 4-year-old, so he's not, so he might not quite be ready for this game, but he's a good example and he's a good time. All right, thanks so much.